We're going to talk about the MSR Reactor stove system. The reactor stove system consists of a pot and a very efficient cook stove that are designed to work together to create a stove that will perform consistently in all environmental conditions and across all fuel canister conditions. The thing that makes the reactor different than every other canister fuel stove out there is that it is a pressure regulated stove. Why is this important? Well, let's take into example the Pocket Rocket, which is one of the best-selling MSR stoves. This stove and all other canister fuel stoves will run at the pressure of the canister. Pressure and temperature are proportional, meaning as it gets colder, the pressure in this canister is going to drop lower and lower and lower. Volume of fuel in the canister and pressure are also proportional. So as the canister gets used and becomes less full, down to the point when it's empty, the pressure is also going to decrease. And these are two problems that plague all canister fuel stoves. The engineers in MSR set out to solve that problem. Recognizing that pressure was the driving force, the first thing they did was to regulate the pressure on this stove. And this little metal disc that you see on the bottom of the reactor stove is a pressure regulator. And it effectively takes every ounce of fuel that comes out of this canister and regulates it to 13 pounds per square inch approximately. Now, why 13 pounds per square inch? That's a very, very low pressure setting for a stove like this. A canister, a typical isopro canister, will run at about 60 to 65 pounds per square inch at room temperature when brand new, which means that even in cold conditions or on an almost empty canister, you're still going to get a very consistent burn and consistent flame out of the reactor stove. The challenge was not to pressure regulate it. The challenge was to, at very low pressure, get a stove to actually boil water in a reasonable amount of time, to contain or have the same performance characteristics that another stove or another canister fuel stove would have at room temperature. The answer to the how do they do it question lies in the system. It's not just the stove, it's not just the pot, it's the system. We're going to take a very low pressure stove and we're going to create a flame that is a radiant burner. And what I mean by a radiant burner is that unlike most stoves which have a rising blue flame, think Bunsen burner in high school chemistry, you're going to end up with a glowing surface. Think the surface of the sun. Think of the way the sun's heat can hit your face on even a cold winter's day and you'd still feel it. It's a very, very efficient heat source. It's a radiant heat source, and we wanted to duplicate that in this burner. Simply having a radiant burner does not create the most efficient environment. What we need to do is get the cookware to work together with that radiant burner. So what MSR went ahead and did was designed an anodized aluminum cook pot. Now, why anodized aluminum? It is the best conductor of heat. So as a result, what we end up with is a pot that's going to be very, very light, yet still very efficient at conducting heat through its material and into the water that's on the inside. On the bottom of the pot, you'll see that there's some heat sink fins. Those fins are designed to increase the surface area on the bottom of the pot, capture as much heat as possible, and transfer it through that anodized aluminum very efficiently into the water that you're trying to boil. Around the outside of the burner head, or the pot, we have a shield, a shroud if you will, that's designed to incorporate over top of the burner head so that there is no airspace between the pot and the burner head, none whatsoever. All other stoves are designed to need a lot more air to complete the combustion reaction. With the reactor, air is entrained before the burner, before the flame, and only before the flame. So the reactor has been designed more efficiently to only need air to be infused into the system early on. There is no way wind can pass between the burner head and the stove pot bottom and carry your heat off to some other place. All of the heat is going to get jammed through the bottom of the aluminum on this pot into the water that you're trying to boil so that you very efficiently, effectively, and quickly boil your water and get on to doing what you're set down to do, and that's to eat.